Okay, we're just going to do a short video to show you the setup procedure for the semi-rotary die station. We're going to concentrate on how to set up the die cutting to register part of the machine in this little video. So we'll talk you through how that works. So in the beginning, when we're setting things up, normally I would start with it in full rotary mode, not semi. And we'll just turn the registration off for now until we get to a point where we're ready to switch it into semi-rotary and get the registration going. So the first job is to load on the magnetic plate. So to do this, we're going to have to remove the cover so that we get access to the cylinder. Probably for loading the plate as well, it's best to take off the hydrojacks. So we'll take those off and just put them away and take the guard off. And with the hydrojacks removed, this cylinder can spin quite easily. It has some springs underneath it that just lift it up. So I'm going to load the plate now. What we've done for the plate, we've just put a little mark in the middle of the plate, and I've got a mark on the middle of the cylinder. Normally when you're loading the plate, you'll square the edges with these marks here, but this is a bit of a funny plate and I've only got a mark on one edge, so we'll just have to do it off the actual plate itself. So just loading that on, get it nice and square. Yeah, looks pretty good. So that's the plate on. So we can now put the guard back on. And then we'll put the hydrojacks back in. One thing that's just worth pointing out on these, sometimes the pins don't retract fully. So if you just wind this back out and then push it on the top, then that pin's fully retracted now. So I'm going to put a bit of pressure on the die. This die needs about 600 psi, something like that. Oop, that must have not quite been engaged. So about 600 front and back now. So the next thing we can do is we need to make sure we're reading the sensor marks. Because we're running printed material, we're going to want to die cut in register to the print. So at the moment we can see the sensor beam is nowhere near the marks, so we can just literally position it. I can jog the machine slowly if I put it into the run mode. So we're looking to get the little green bar of light over the black square. Now if you're running a different material and it's a different colour mark, you may need to reteach the sensor. The way I normally do this isn't quite the same as what it says on the sensor, but I find this way works best. So if you get it first on the background, so between the marks, and then press this button on the right that says background and hold it until the green LED goes out. And then get it over the mark, so it's shining over the mark. Oops, just gone too far there. So that's nicely in the middle of the mark, and then press the mark button just for a couple of seconds, release it, and now you'll see that we've got the orange and the green on. And what you'll find is that every time it sees the mark, the orange light comes on and the green light goes out. Now in the servo setup as well, you'll see that we have a light here that's coming on and off. So we've got a green light here that comes on, and that's basically when it's over a mark, that should be green, and then when you jog it, it goes to red. So that's basically how we do that. Now we're ready to put it into semi-rotary mode now. So we're going to go from full rotary into semi-rotary. We're also going to turn the registration on because we need to basically cut and register to the print. So we hit this button here, which takes us to the next screen. The first item is Dispro offset, and what you need the Dispro offset for is depending on the actual plate that you've put in. If it's come off a full rotary tool, you could find that it's not the correct Dispro offset. So say that had come off a 12-inch full rotary tool, when you put it on a 22-inch mag, when you run it, the gaps between the labels won't always be the same. Where the plate join is, you'll get a bigger gap, and you can change that with the Dispro offset. Now this plate has been made with the Dispro already in to suit the 22-inch repeat mag cylinder, so for this one we'll leave the Dispro offset at 0. The next one is plate margin. So I'll show you the plate margin. We'll lift the cover off. Now to get the cylinder to a point where we see it, what I'm going to do is we'll go into setup mode on here, because when I'm in setup mode I can reset the safety. So we can be in setup and have the safety reset, and that won't let me start the machine, but it will let me jog it at a very slow speed. So I'm just going to jog it. I just have to so I'm going to jog it now until I can see where the plate margin is. So what the plate margin is all about, we have the scribed line on the mag cylinder, and then we have the flexible plate. Now the distance between the scribed line and where it cuts or starts to cut is the plate margin. Now when we go back to normally, you would set your cutter up with these marks which are either side of the flexible plate. What can happen is, depending on where whoever makes your plate is, puts these marks, sometimes they're down here, sometimes there's a gap before you get them. So the start of the cut can sometimes be this side of the line or that side. So the plate margin just basically accounts for that, because it is critical with it being semi-rotary that we know where the start of the plate is. So on this one you can see that we're very close to the line, so we're about 1 millimetre from the line, so that would be a plate margin, I would say, of about 1 millimetre. Now if it's to the right of the line, it's a positive plate margin, so that would be 1 millimetre positive. If the start of the cut was further over here, where my thumbnail is now, then that will be a negative plate margin. So if it was where my thumbnail is, you'd be something like -4 or -5 millimetres for the plate margin. So it's basically the distance from the scribe line on the mag to where you start the cut. To the right is positive, to the left is negative. So we're going to enter that value in now. So we come to the plate margin and we're going to put that in as 1. So just touch on the number, put in 1.0. The registration position, well, we'll leave that at 10 for now, because we don't really know where that needs to be until we've actually done an initialize and we see where it's cutting. The marks per plate is how many registration marks there are for the repeat of the cutter. Now this is a 12-inch repeat cutter, and the labels are actually 3 inches long, so we actually have 1, 2, 3, 4 marks per repeat of the cutter. So the marks per plate would be 4, and this is, as I say, a 12-inch cutter, which is in millimetres is 304.8 mil. So that means the plate will repeat itself every 304.8 mil. So that's everything that we need in the servo setup, so we can now go and do an initialize. It won't let us initialize with the machine in setup, so what we'll have to do is put the guard back on. And then we can switch it into the run position. And then it says initialization required, so we hit this button here, and then we hit operate. And you'll see that the machine will then do the initialization. So the shuttle moves, and now that's complete. So we'll just run a little bit of paper through. And then we can strip it, and we'll see where we are in terms of our registration position. Stick up on the top. I'm just going to move the die that way a bit as well. We have adjustment on the die. The whole die box moves in and out, and at the moment I need to bring the die needs to go towards the back of the machine because we're cutting too close, so we'll go in, I think, maybe a couple of mils, so that will be 1-2 turns of the handle. So if we look at the registration position, I don't know how clearly you'll be able to see this, but we're out of position by probably something like 23 millimeters. We need to be cutting not here because we're cutting through the middle of the deco. We want to be cutting over here somewhere. So we need to be about, I would say, 23 millimeters. Now there's two ways we can adjust it. We can either just adjust it on the die cut adjust, but the problem with that, if we just do it on there, is it'll take it quite a few repeats because it'll only allow it to correct a few millimeters per repeat, so that'll waste a lot of material. So we have this one called static move, so what we can do is we press static move, and then we're going to go 23 millimeters, enter. Now before we hit operate, I just want to make sure that the plate is actually clear of the material. So you can see the end of the plate is there now. So I'm going to do the operate, and when I press the operate, you'll see that cylinder will just move a little bit. Okay, so that's done its move. So if we run now, we'll just run it slowly, and you should see when this will come in one jump to where we want it. Okay, so you see how that's come now to where we want it? Let's get rid of the edge trim. Now it's probably still a little bit to the left, so then we can use the die cut adjust. I'm going to move it, say, another 1.5 millimeters. So we can use the left and right buttons here just to move it. And as this runs, you'll see that coming through. So that gap's now got bigger. So we're much more central now in the label. And we've also got the position better this way by doing the 2 turns on the handle and moving the die box in by a couple of millimeters as well. So that is basically the procedure. Once we're running, we can speed it up. function very nicely throughout the range of speeds. So that's basically the setup of how you would set the machine up for the semi-rotary cutting. Hope you enjoyed it.